presentation is a deep dive into the Wandlore in the Harry Potter series. So if you were looking for the conspiracy meetup that Regulus Black is Crookshanks, that's actually next door. And we're not going to judge. First off, for my own curiosity, who here has a wand? Like, yeah, I expected, I love this, I love this. Do you think it's natural to feel a sort of affection for your wand once you get it? Like you're very connected to it, it's a part of you, in a way? Has anyone here named their wand? None. All right, last time we had 2 and I was so confused because I'm like, nobody names their wand, that's so weird. Nobody was great, they had great names too. It was like C and Harley, and I was like, yeah! When you guys bring them around with you, do you have a holster? Do you guys put them like in your sleeve? You keep your box with you at all times? Yeah. Wow, seriously? Wow, that's not dual efficient, but I like it. We're going to talk about that. There's entire slides about this, by the way. This is really in depth, by the way. So take notes. It's involved. Does anyone put it? Harry says he keeps his in the back pocket of his jeans. Maybe it's just because I'm female, but my back pockets are about this big, and a wand is like this big, and that's just not going to work. But apparently even other wizards do this, because Mad Eye said that wizards have done the same and they've lost buttocks. And I'm led to believe, like, how? Number one, how? That's ridiculous to me. But since the books are set in the 90s, I'm led to believe that wizards wear jinkos. If you guys want this, I'll put it on Twitter and you can just save it. It's your background image now. All right, wizard fashion aside, everybody wands up. Help me unlock the mysteries of Harry Potter Wandlore. So 3, 2, 1, hello, Laura. Oh, this is great. Sorry if my voice gives out halfway. Like I have, we were at the ball last night, and if you're not screaming along to Carry On My Wayward Son with people that you've just met, you're doing it wrong. So I have given up already. All right, so what we know about wands. First off, the big one, wizards have them. They make magic happen, that's a given. Another is that they're made of wood. I don't think I've heard of another base material for them. They're always just made of wood. That's that. Third, there's a core of a magical creature that imparts some kind of extra magical power. They can vary in size, as you can see here. They can be very, very long, sometimes extremely short. Generally, they're around 11 inches, but they can be all over the place. And thirdly, or lastly, the wand chooses the wizard. That is to say, a wand responds when it finds a wizard that it matches up with. What we don't know about wands, everything. So that's why a lot of this talk is going to be about speculative writing. It's connecting the dots, seeing the bigger or sometimes smaller picture, and there's a lot of inference based upon the information that we have. Wands are everywhere in this series, but the minutia of them, or of magic in general, is rarely discussed openly. Unless you're kind of a weirdo, like I guess we all are, you don't really think about it. Wand, bake, magic, got it, moving on. But if you're also a weirdo, like me, you have a lot of questions. So, for instance, Harry Potter enters Ollivanders for the first time. He spends 7 galleons on his brand new, not at all ominous, phoenix feather wand. But Horace Slughorn in The Half-Blood Prince casually mentions that a single unicorn hair is worth 10 galleons. That makes me wonder, does the price of a wand change according to its contents? Are some wands simply more expensive than others? One has to believe that rarity is sometimes a factor in the price. Of the 3 main cores that Ollivander works with, there's Dragon Heartstring, which definitely requires either slaying a dragon or being a dragon open heart surgeon. Then Unicorn Hair, which is, harvestable and it replenishes, or you're a unicorn hairstylist. And that seems a lot more reasonable than it should in the wizard world. And Phoenix Feather, which is the rarest, but is more or less willingly given from the creature. Also, considering wand cores have unusual properties when they're paired against each other, you might not want to harvest too many cores from one subject, despite how many coronary bypass surgeries on dragons you may perform. But therefore, do some wand cores cost more than another? Is there something about wand woods, some of which seem really, really exotic? I have no idea what wand quality is, but when you consider that not all trees are grown to that kind of quality, and I mean, some of the type of trees are rare enough as is, and then finding special magic twigs on this tree, that's pretty remarkable. You'd figure that it would all somehow come down to the price of the wand. For a minute, just imagine being the wizard that went broke because you were chosen by this amazing wand that has the last remaining hair of Merlin encased in a branch from the giving tree. That's a mortgage right there. There's nothing you can say about it. Ollivander himself explains that he is a very discerning wand maker. He's optimizing his creations for reliability, which is why he doesn't prefer to work with, for instance, Vela hair. This statement doesn't mean he's never done so. In fact, it suggests that he's made a great many wands like this by which to establish an opinion. We don't know whether he prefers these materials because of their reliable quality or the reliability of which they would pair and therefore sell. He's a businessman, after all, and we also glean that he is a very passionate artist. He cares about the things that he makes, the woods he utilizes, the work he puts into every single one of his wands. And it's a big feat. You're creating a sort of magical soulmate for every wizard. It's inspiring work, and he takes it very, very seriously. He has to memorize every wand that he makes and who buys them. But there's got to be outliers somewhere, like people with not only preferences in wands, but actual necessity, like Hagrid. Hagrid's a huge guy. How does he get a wand that suits his body type? If these things were uniform, he'd have to just tape 6 wands together and call it a day. And Flitwick's wand should suit his stature as well as Hagrid's does, which means there's got to be a cupboard just full of really unusual wands inside that shop, just for weird edge cases. So given that assumption, is it actually cost prohibitive to be a wizard of unusual size or of taste or of power? Have you guys visited the Universal parks at all? Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? Have you guys seen one of the wand fittings? Yeah. Has anyone actually gotten a wand from there? Yes! Really?
I was chosen.
So
it was my birthday.
Seriously? Oh, that's amazing. I was chosen to be fitted last time I was there, and it was a very small room and everything. It was great. And everyone laughed at me because instead of Leviosa, I said Alohomora. And the shame of it still gives me nightmares. But in that shop, when you find your wand, it's a beautiful thing to see, but when you're actually there and the wand chooses you, there's this surge of music and light, and it feels honestly incredible. It's way more fun than it should be. But in the wizarding world, there's a possibility that not all wizards could find the wand that is perfect for them. Just like on the Edge case, there might not be that way. In Ollivander's biography on Pottermore, we learned that historically, wand makers would actually, sorry, I messed up the thing, would make custom wands by the request of the client. For instance, a wizard that would bring in a magical core of some, based mostly in sentimentality. So the whiskers of their favorite pet Kneazle. And the wand maker would have to build around that to make the actual instrument. Results seemed a bit mixed, and it was kind of a while until Ollivander himself coined the tactic of making each wand out of the reliable and powerful cores to begin with, and then matching them up to the wizards afterwards. So custom wands do exist for people who are specific about what they want in a wand, but who knows if it's actually as powerful. Ollivander makes one for Luna when they're at Shell Cottage, and that one seems to work great. And there's definitely going to be a roaring trade in custom wands for peculiar tastes. I mean, it's just the way it's going to be. Yeah, as he says himself, as Ollivander says by himself, if you're any wizard at all, you'll be able to channel your magic through almost any instrument. So it looks like the Merlin wand of the Giving Tree would be more of a status symbol than almost anything. But then again, how many hairs from Merlin's beard has he actually worked with? So this sample size is inconclusive there. Custom wands of variable power also seem, again, like pretty cost prohibitive. It's gotta be expensive being a wizard. That's not cheap to do. Like you're 11 years old and you're poor, and you go to Ollivander's, and like, you know, the Ollivander bargain bin, I guess, and just wave your hands over it and see if some sparks happen. Just guessing. Is there a desperation visit to Marvin Dingbat, discount wand maker? I made this one out of a ruler. It's got the measurements on. It's right unique out this. I love Marvin Dingbat. He's my new OC. Of course, the most affordable option would be passing down another wand throughout the family, if you happen to have one. In Tales of Beetle the Bard, there's a footnote that says most people, when they die, are either buried with their wands or the wands are burned along with them in the cremation process. That doesn't rule out the possibility of like a previously owned wand emporium, but it would make sense for families to have the wands of the departed as a keepsake. You know, it's still a useful instrument, you know, keep it around. So of course it could be repurposed. In the Order of the Phoenix, in fact, Neville mentions that he uses his dad's old wand. I don't think that's through financial necessity so much as Grandma Longbottom really wanting to be a cookie cutter of his father. But it says a lot about his wand skill, that he's been using that for 5 years up to that point. And we know that Ron has Charlie's old wand. Wait, what? Wait, why would Ron have Charlie's old wand? Charlie's not dead. He's not otherwise incapacitated. You know, my condolences to the Longbottoms. But how did he somehow get a new wand in order to pass on the other one? So we know that there's a custom in the Weasley family that when the kiddos get a big achievement, like becoming a prefect, that they get a special gift. Percy, when he got prefect, he got his owl Hermes. Ron asked for a broom. And, you know, becoming a prefect seems to have happened to, sorry, quote-unquote, everyone else in the family, as Mrs. Weasley says. I'm glad I got a laugh out of that, because some people didn't get the joke. And I'm like, yeah, it was kind of rude. Meaning that Bill and Charlie were both prefects as well. So, thusly, they probably started this gifting tradition. For his gift, Charlie probably asked for a new wand, you know? And it was right in time for Ron to inherit the old one. So that's great, you know? Convenient. But why would he want a new wand? The old one worked, clearly, because Ron seems to have no problems with it. It wasn't a defective wand, so why would he want one? I surmise that Charlie's wand wasn't his to begin with. It seems like money must have been tight for the Weasleys, it always is, but in Charlie's first years at Hogwarts, all of the kids had been born by then, and taking care of a family that large is expensive, no matter what. What better way to save a little money than to visit the certified pre? This is also, again, still just entirely in my headcanon. The certified pre-owned wand emporium, but I think that this is actually a little bit more special than that. I think that it's more intimate. I think that when Charlie began his first year at Hogwarts, he had the wand of Fabian Pruitt. Gideon and Fabian Pruitt, as we know, were Molly Weasley's brothers. They were members of Order of the Phoenix during the First Wizard War. It's really hard not to just say that. The First Wizard War, and that is when the Death Eaters killed them. There is little to remember them by. We know that Fabian's wristwatch was a gift to Harry when he turned 17. And if they saved his watch, then there's a chance that, you know, likely his wand could have been saved too. It's likely that both of their wands were recovered and saved. Maybe Molly had them. Maybe when the time came, Charlie got a wand that worked and one that was already imprinted on another owner. And he knows that there's a difference. With time, any wand owner can tell what it feels like to have that comfort and companionship of a wand, or perhaps the lack of it. But I bet you one thing, that the new wand of Charlie's probably had a dragon heartstring inside. Yeah. So, once again, imagine yourself inside Ollivander's shop. You're a young witch or wizard just starting school. You're nervous, excited. This wand is yours alone. Ollivander hands you wand after wand after wand. You're going through them, you're swishing them around, it's not doing anything. They're all pretty cool. And then he hands you this one. And that's when the sparks fly. So people have to react to that, right? Like, including you, other wizards, like other students might have wands that belonged to dead people, but not made of them. This is not easily ignored. The movie version of wands always fascinated me because, of course, they have to be a little bit more glamorous or showy. That's what movies do. That's why the Hungarian Horntail destroyed half the towers at Hogwarts for, like, some reason, I guess. You can excuse a lot of things in movies for the sake of looking cool and selling merchandise. But of course, I was unsatisfied, and I wanted to dig a bit deeper. The books rarely mention any distinction between wands. Length might be the only thing that's commented upon. That's essential to the wand itself. It gives the impression that wands are kind of plain, like, just like those little rabbit out of a hat magician sticks kind of things. Even the American Goblet of Fire art has Harry holding what is generally just a nondescript black rod, like a magic drinking straw. There must have been something like color to differentiate them visually, because however uninteresting it might be, twice in the books, Harry and Hermione are disarmed, and their wands are handed back to them with seemingly no confusion. So they knew which one was which. There's a difference between their wands, and that difference is unmistakable at a glance, but it's never expressly mentioned. A wand is also something that you notice about a person. It's one more indicator of personality or style, which stands out if you're all wearing the same school uniforms. It's one more way to kind of make yourself feel special or look a certain way. Now, comparisons seem normal. Like, we get excited when someone has a really cool car, and people have a desire to stand out and personalize themselves. Wands are one more opportunity, and a very intimate one, to do exactly that. So how much does wand appearance matter? I mean, sure, you got this, made from a corpse, definitely a dark wizard wand, and everyone's noticing you. And this kind of sucks unless you happen to be the daughter of a Death Eater who was sorted into Hufflepuff and resents it. And you, go see the Puffs play if you haven't, by the way. It's amazing, and this is the storyline. It's fabulous. But clearly, again, we are working with outliers here, the things that help establish what would be considered the norm. We find the borders of this, and somewhere in the middle, we find the realm of normal everyday wizardry. But back in that wand shop, let's say you're grabbing magical twigs, you're trying to make something happen, and that's when sparks fly, and in your hand is a wand that looks like this one. It's beautiful, it's overtly feminine, but you're a guy, and you're secretly gay. Or you're only presenting as male, and you've been hiding the fact that you're a trans woman. How do you explain that? Do you have to explain it? Will people actually notice? If each person's wand is a representation of themselves, there's a chance that each wand that picks us will reveal our secrets about who we really are, or what we will become. It's funny to think about, when it's a possible evil dark wizard who's 11 years old, but it's less comfortable when we think about the real implications or even the dangers associated with that. But if you're a dude with a pretty flowery wand, I mean, what about it? Even if you're like a cisgender, heteronormative bro who likes plants and art design, that's cool, but it's opening up to a whole other realm of being teased or taunted for standing out and appearing different. In this scenario, you might become strong and self-assured through all of this attention, or you could go down the path of self-doubt and self-denial and ultimately undergo emotional damage, because we are all being judged all the time, and the intimacy of having an instrument that defines us slung readily across our hips, swished around in classes, measured and cataloged by the Ministry of Magic, there will be judgment there. So, how easy is it to change the appearance of a wand once it's yours? It seems like every aspect of a wand is integral to its magical power, even like the strength or the rigidity factors in. And as we know, a broken wand cannot be fixed unless by the most powerful magic in the world, which is love. That's not true at all. You can't kiss a wand and make it better. But wands can be in vogue. They can be status symbols, or even certain types of wood can get trendy, like elm with purebloods and silver lime with divination. Everyone's going to know if you have one of Marvin Dingbat's unique and questionable creations. Wands are a point of pride in wizard kind. I mean, if Ron tried to turn his stupid pet rat yellow, what if a rumor goes around the magical world that shorter wands are more powerful? You might see an influx of fifth years grinding their wands in half for the pure sake of impressing people. Because no matter how idiotic, people will do things like that. So, for the sake of appearances, how much can a wand undergo visual transformation without tampering its magical power? And speaking about caring of appearances, Lucius Malfoy! That's my favorite segue in the entire presentation, by the way. Have you seen this guy's wand? like, look at this. This is in the movies. Look, it's a crazy, heavy, metal, stabby, like snake head with fangs that are so sharp in a duel, you'll probably draw first blood on yourself. Like, and it's made to hide inside of a walking cane. This is ingenious if it wasn't so ridiculous. Like, he's a Death Eater. He duels. There's going to be times when he has to like quickly arm himself, and in tearing a stick of thin wood inside of a walking cane means that like someday when he draws it, it's going to snap in half. Let's be clear. Like, you can't just go ah and not just have the thing fly out and just be ridiculous. It's not like a holster or a sheath. It's not even a sword in its scabbard. Swords are made of metal. The thing would just snap. This drives me crazy. I can't get over it. But leave it to Lucius to prize gaudiness over functionality. But there's a lot to be learned here, too. But clearly, he has customized his wand in a certain way. Now, if he's got it custom made, it's presumed it wouldn't be the first and only wand in his life. We know that custom wands possibly being less powerful than finding one that's already made. Pottermore says that Lucius's wand is made of elm, and which supports it being a status symbol just as much as an actual tool. In The Sorcerer's Stone, Draco mentions that his mother is looking at wands for him, likely trying to weed out wands for some muggle-born wimps or something. But, if Lucius's wand, it's clear that the Malfoys care a little bit more about status than substance in certain cases. If Lucius's wand isn't custom created, though, that means he had to do some really heavy-duty work to make it so fancy. And how does a wand respond to that, actually? The humans are all about personalization. I imagine Hogwarts students drilling tiny holes in their wand handles so they can attach cell phone charms. And, or your best friend takes a weird sister's bumper sticker and wraps it around the handle. How does a wand actually respond to that? Can you bring it in to get it decoratively carved? Does Hagrid's wand ever get fed up pretending to be an umbrella? How much decoration can one wand handle? They say, that is to say, wands, in fact, do have a certain personality of their own. They innately know and respond to the wizards who wield them. They canonically have their own preferences. Possibly, some wands like to get all dressed up and fancy, like their wizard counterparts, but looking at the movies and the wands within it, I have another idea. I theorize that a wand can change and decorate itself through evolution. Chances that a wand comes straight out of the grinder, befitted with a big old skull, like this one, which is mine, I like this, or looking like this, is it's very rare. I don't think that there's a possibility of that exactly. People change through growth and choices and the experiences. If a wand is there throughout these shared experiences, I see no reason why it wouldn't change as well. I think the wands in the shop that are waiting for their wizard to appear look kind of plain. Not like drinking straw or like chopstick plain, but much more subtle than the ones that we see in the hands of older wizards. In Tales of Beedle the Bard, Dumbledore imparts that wands do indeed absorb the expertise of those who use them. So the wand learns alongside its partner. It grows with us. It revels in the choices that we make, the challenges that we face. And these shape us as individuals. The bond between wand and witch can grow. And I think within years of continued use, you'd see subtle shifts or changes. Perhaps the handle shapes itself to suit the grip of its partner, or the embellishments surface, like the wrinkles on our faces, and the posture of our stance, the way that we comfortably smile. It can also react to the magic we perform, absorbing and enhancing it. Which is how we come back to the wand of Lord Voldemort. The sheer breadth of Tom Riddle's spellwork is nearly unparalleled. He dove into mastering the dark arts further than any wizard we have ever known, and it's noted that it actually marred his physical appearance. His wand was integral to that journey, performing every spell and mastering each skill. It couldn't have come through unharmed. Voldemort's wand underwent the same transformation as the Dark Lord himself. It wasn't carved this way. It's not in the back of a shop waiting for an evil witch to scamper in and claim her birthright. It's a product, as we all are, of the experiences that we have, and those who we have those experiences with. As this wand facilitated the transference of Lord Voldemort's soul into these objects through these murders, it isn't surprising that it gave a bit of itself as well. Which leads to another conjectural question. Do wands have souls? As we collect and parse information throughout this talk, it's clear that wands are much more complex than a stick or a drinking straw or a repurposed ruler that just swishes around and does magic. And the more we consider, the easier it is to believe that this instrument truly is its own being. A wand is an extension of the self, not just in skill and prowess, but in temperament. It requires that we respect it and its wishes, which can sometimes conflict with our own. There's so much to be gleaned from the Wandwoods page on Pottermore. If you haven't seen it, I cannot recommend it enough. I go through it constantly, about each wood's disposition. Like, for instance, hawthorn wands can backfire if they're mishandled. This is pretty unique. Sycamore wands crave adventure so much that if they get bored, they can spontaneously combust. It's funnier in the page even. I didn't even quote it. It's amazing. This suggests that there's a lot more here than just a thing that we use to make magic go. It truly is a relationship, a bond, an exchange of time. Wands, in so many ways, are like love or romance. Some people have many wands in their lifetime for various reasons. Some may keep to a few, which they keep as long as they can. And some, maybe only one. As the poet Alexander Smith wrote, love is but the discovery of ourselves and others, and the delight in the recognition. That feels a lot like the wand choosing the wizard to me. It's odd, then, that we tend not to name our wands, right? And give them the dignity that having a real kind of life partner deserves. Perhaps we see too much of ourselves in them to make that distinction, but I think that any wandlorist would have to question how wise or accurate that actually is. Historically, only powerful and notable magical items get special names. The Elder Wand, this guy, is often referred to as the Death Stick, like the Wand of Destiny. But then we think of it, the only real analog that we have to that are notable swords, like King Arthur's Excalibur, Gandalf's Glamdring, which is very fun to say, by the way. It sounds like a spell. Like if I were to be like, Gandalf's Glamdring at you, you would like have minty fresh breath forever, but you would hate the taste of orange juice. It's a trade-off. It's a bad curse. Our wands also occupy, I think, a special designation for us. I don't think wizards are often bonded with more than one wand at a time. So therefore, the title of my wand seems to serve the purpose instead of a name does. It's like my phone. It denotes that you're using it right now and suggests that you won't need another one until this one is broken or gone. In fact, it parallels between the parallels between kind of phone and wand are pretty hard to ignore. It's always at our side. We generally all have one. And we may replace it sometimes, but it's sort of a partnership, a connection to the world around us. I think that wands sit in the uneasy space between relationship and phone. They're all companions to our lives, and with much luck, will help us perform our best. But at the same time, you know, like, they're not exactly a relationship. And the designation usually is singular. At the very least, if you have many wands or partners or phones, you'd call one your primary. But a wand is not a phone. It responds to you individually, personally, in fact. Nor does it operate as a Horcrux. A wand can change its allegiance. It can leave you. In a lot of ways, a wand actually feels truly alive. The contents of a wand were alive ones as well. The cores from primarily of magical beings, which were clearly alive, to the trees of which they were harvested. Life is a factor in this instrument that seemingly transcended both of its previous forms, and it became something very different. A wand can recognize its sibling. We see that with Harry and Voldemort. In fact, Harry's wand and the same phoenix that provided its core were in the same room multiple times. Did his wand recognize Fawkes? It's maybe not so overt as walking into Dumbledore's office and like heart-shaped sparks start flying out or anything. You know, that would be a little bit much. But a wand can perceive and reject battle against its sibling. And perhaps it would also refuse to attack the creature whose core it contains. I don't know why you would want to attack Fawkes. Maybe there's a fight. I don't know. But, you know, I don't think it would actually operate very well against that. In Harry's case, this becomes even more strange. That he was chosen by the wand whose brother was that of Tom Riddle's. This is totally weird. This is going to be a deep dive into me going nuts about why and how this could possibly happen. So buckle up for like 2 minutes. How could a wand have that information? If we assume that they were crafted at the same time, then wands presumably must understand the nature of history, or prophecy, or fate, or enough that it could respond to it. Or they knew each other. They knew where each other went and where the pairs are. If the feathers were not given at the same time, maybe it's Fawkes' understanding that imprinted onto the feather? And that means that Fawkes understood the situation, and that means that each wand core has a memory from the creature that grew it. And this is getting crazy, and magic is unknowable, and how can we understand everything? And priori incantatem exists, and I'm just gonna have a meltdown up here if you don't mind. But like, there's so much science that we can apply here, and there's no real way to do it. Is there a certain affinity that Tom Riddle himself had with Fawkes, now that, you know, their wands were paired or anything like that? Did Harry's wand recognize like the slice of like Voldemort's soul in him, and that's why he was chosen? Is it something to do with that? Does Harry's wand react automatically against the owner of its brother wand because it recognized him as a potential pair? Or was it just that they knew where the brother... There's so much to have here. We have to test this. Unfortunately, it requires like 5 wands with a core of all the same dragon or something, so when it comes in and a witch goes like, this is my wand, we're like, try 4 of these other ones too, for science purposes. That's like the start of a terrible joke. A scientist, a wand maker, and a dragon heart surgeon walk into a bar, and they wait. I could go on about this for ages, but we only have an hour, and I'm sure I've lost you already. So, if a wand really is its own being, then automatic spells don't seem like the strangest thing for them to do. Again, in Tales of Beetle the Bard, it is noted that a wand sometimes holds residual power, which can discharge at odd moments. We mentioned Sycamore's boredom combustion, and Ollivander has said that vine wands can be so sensitive that they emit magical effects upon the mere entrance of a suitable owner into the room. He says that he's seen that happen twice. A wizard under the age of 11 can prove their magical ability before that age, generally without the help of a wand. And so I don't think we're as codependent on wands as we think that we are. I think that it's a kind of a helpful tool. But it's also a question of synergy. both elements needing focus and direction that the other one provides. It's a way to harness and utilize the raw power in each. But then there's a question of how much we need these instruments that we prize so dearly. Forgive me. Pottermore adds the tidbit that wand usage is necessary in brewing a potion, for instance. Like, you have to have a wand to do that. And the question of apparition without a wand is brought up in the Deathly Hallows. Can you apparate if you don't have a wand on your person? I think in this case, what they're meaning is substituting wand for magical ability. Because what we heard about Ollivander said in the Deathly Hallows is that a competent wizard can channel magic through just about anything. Perhaps what is necessary is a focus that the wand provides so easily. I think the question is rather a larger one, not just about the wand, whether we need them, but it's applicable to many things. Can you do this alone without anyone or anything at your side? Can you perform as well when someone isn't there to back you up? Well, maybe, but why would you? Loyalty is one of the topics that comes up when discussing wands a lot. It might be one of the most confusing. We have relatively few examples of wand loyalty. They seem to spring up only in the last book, and that's difficult to measure. Like the impact on a wizard's everyday life, especially when they're at Hogwarts. They've just gotten their wands. It's probably going to be fine. Most of the mentions on Pottermore are about earning the loyalty of specific woods. That the personalities of the wood itself makes them standoffish or challenging, even to the wizards that they have chosen. Spruce and alder are really hard to place, but once they do, their hard-won loyalty is stalwart. Curiously, blackthorn wands need to pass through a period of hardship to truly bond with their partner. It's no wonder that we hear so little of losing loyalty in the books, because so long as you assume that a wand has been properly placed and well treated, it's probably going to work out just fine. Laurel and Black Walnut actually give us our biggest hints about this. Laurelwood hates laziness and will become quote-unquote easily won away if it decides it doesn't respect its master anymore. And Black Walnut will outright quit working if the user practices self-deception. So it needs to be rematched to gain its former power. Wait, rematching? You guys were back in business. Rematching actually can occur. If the wand and the wizard are no longer suited for one another, they just grow apart or something, they can actually disconnect. But what about being won away from a partner? It's not like every Expelliarmus spell is results in a conquered wand that loves you now. Harry would be the master of 50 wands, and DA meetings would be a nightmare. There's specific circumstances that must be in place. Each wand seems to have a threshold for disappointment. It's usually rooted in something to do with either ambition or virtue. If you perform dark magic with an apple wand, it will be very displeased. And failing to provide a life of adventure with a maple wand will make it sulky and sluggish. It wants something. On the other hand, hazel, in a sense, actually dies when its partner does. So, firing off a jinx doesn't mean you'll have a wandy stepchild to care for, so you're probably fine. I think that the difficulty in assessing wand loyalty is because of our foremost lesson has directly to do with this guy, the Elder Wand. Ooh, no, I like it. You didn't think I'd go through the whole presentation not talking about the Elder Wand, right? This is the most famous one in the book. I feel like the Elder Wand provides an outright worst lesson in terms of wand loyalty. It's such a specific and notorious instrument. As far as we know, it's the only thing that can repair a broken wand, as Harry used it to repair his own. In my kind of inner sleuth senses that this might have actually happened twice. I think that Dumbledore could have repaired Hagrid's wand, right before he went to pick up Harry, and that's why he was so excited about it. It also seems like Dumbledore's sense of humor, that this wand's immense power can disguise Hagrid's wand, and so therefore he chose to make a pink umbrella for its costume. That seems very Dumbledore to me. This unbeatable wand was created to be mercenary. That is its strength, its express purpose. It will only settle for being beaten. And I think there's only the barest hint of loyalty in this thing. I don't think it's made for that. It is ambition incarnate. It's constantly measuring power and re-allying itself according to circumstance. The strangest thing, and I think what makes it more of a magical artifact than like a true wand, is that the Elder Wand's loyalty doesn't rely on spells or even being in the hand of its master. The very first story we heard of its allegiance changing, no spells were performed at all. A thief came in, took the wand, and slit Peveril's throat. Like, that's it. Since we have learned that wands actually do know when their partners die via the Hazel Wand, the Elder Wand must have known that this thief killed Peveril. And we know that that's a kind of conquering in itself. The second time that we know of this kind of thing happening was Harry literally tackling Draco, stealing a wand out of his hand, and, there wasn't any magic done there. Draco was nonetheless vanquished, but this wand wasn't even in the room, and it knew that that happened. There was no spell. It was completely beyond him. Draco didn't even know that he had the loyalty of this wand at that point, but this wand knew that Harry had become its new master. Somehow, not being in the room, they even knew it. Now, here's also a thing that is strange. It seems to sense willingness. Dumbledore, being as incredibly intelligent about Wandlore as he is, must have banked on this. He knew the stories really, really well, because as it was planned, he was going to die unbeaten. That this wand would actually leave him would be ownerless, presumably powerless upon his death. But he also was in an agreement with Snape to make that happen. But how could that be? How could Snape have killed him and not gained the wand's favor in that case? In fact, Harry also did the same thing. He willingly died by Voldemort's hand in the forest, and the Elder Wand was front and center, performed the spell, seemed to know this. And if Harry was the owner of the wand at that time, it would have moved over to Voldemort, but it didn't. And somehow there's a nuance to this, which I find very confusing. The idea of conditional surrender. The Elder Wand seems to thrive on conflict. It won't change hands unless it is beaten or stolen or someone puts up a fight. Somehow making peace with the whole thing, just being like, okay, you beat me, that's perfectly okay, is fine with it. It sort of voids the contract, which I think, morally wise, is something that Death itself would have been kind of keen on when he actually created the instrument. After all, in the story itself, it said, the third brother took off his cloak and greeted Death as an old friend and went with him gladly. So maybe that's the key, that's the moral to the Hallows. To the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure, after all, so, I guess get used to it. When it comes to the Elder Wand, you can be the possessor, but nobody is its true partner. This separates it from all other wands that we know, which embody joy and togetherness and equality and partnership. A wand is more than a tool. It's a best friend. They are loved and lost. They are cherished and taken for granted. And for some, they serve as proof that something close to a soulmate exists in the world. There are endless stories to tell about each wand and each person and the connections that they have. If you're like me, whether it's the stories or the wands themselves, you just keep collecting. So, thank you very much. I really hope you enjoyed this talk.